All right, let's jump right in. We are about to connect two things you'd probably never, ever think to put in the same sentence. The one and only Keke Palmer, and a super technical research paper about the future of artificial intelligence. I know it sounds kind of out there, but trust me on this. This connection, it actually tells us something really deep about what identity even is for us and for machines. So that's the big question for today, isn't it? What on earth could a Hollywood star, a master of shaping her own public image, possibly share with an AI that's been built to think like a political operative? Well, the answer, as it turns out, is pretty much everything. You look at this, right? On one side, you've got the artist, an expert in what it means to be human. And on the other, you have the algorithm, a product of pure machine logic. It seems like they're from two different universes, but they are both wrestling with the exact same idea, the incredible power of a good story. To really get what's happening with the AI, we first have to get the human side of the story. And for that, Keke Palmer is going to be our guide.
A little while back, Keke Palmer put out a book. Now you might think, oh, another celebrity memoir, but that's not what this is at all. As anyone who's read it will tell you, this is really a self-help book, and it's built on one very, very powerful idea.
The whole point of her book is that your identity isn't just a thing that happens to you, it's a narrative, it's a story you are actively telling about yourself every single day. You take all your experiences, the good, the bad, all of it, and you weave it into a story that says, this is who I am. You get to control your narrative.
Okay, so hang on to that idea about controlling your narrative. We're going to switch gears for a second, over to the world of AI, where some brilliant researchers at UC Berkeley and Northwestern were dealing with a massive identity crisis of their own.
Here was the huge problem they were up against. You see, it's pretty easy to make an AI act like someone. You can just tell it, hey, you're a 65-year-old conservative farmer, and it'll just spit back a bunch of stereotypes it found online. But how do you get it to have a real, genuine personality? How do you make it feel authentic? The researchers have a technical name for this, the persona binding problem. And what's so cool here is this difference between shallow binding and deep binding. Shallow binding is what we've had so far. The AI's is just playing a role, like an actor reading lines. It's an outsider's view. But the goal, the holy grail, is deep binding, getting the AI to respond from an authentic, insider's point of view. It's about moving from a caricature to a character.
So, how'd they crack it? Well, their big idea is going to sound shockingly familiar. They figured that to give an AI a real identity, it needed a life story.
They actually turned to this psychological theory called narrative identity. And this is wild. The theory basically says that for us humans, our self isn't some fixed thing. It is literally built, constructed by the story we tell about our own lives. The story isn't a byproduct of our identity. The story is our identity. So using that theory, they came up with this amazing process. First, one AI interviews another AI, asking it all these deep questions about its life. Then, and this is the genius part, a third AI acts as a critic. It reads through the interview and flags anything that doesn't make sense or contradicts itself. They just keep doing this until they have a rich, detailed, and totally coherent personal history, a complete backstory from scratch.
So what they're doing is, they're not just slapping a label on an AI, like Democrat. They are giving it a synthetic life, a childhood, first jobs, relationships, moments of triumph, moments of regret, a whole personal history that it can then draw from to figure out how it would actually feel about something. Okay, so having a cool method is one thing, but proving it actually works, that's a whole other ballgame. And to really put this thing through its paces, they picked one of the most complicated parts of human identity you can imagine, American politics. To pull this off, the researchers generated thousands of these synthetic backstories for both Democrats and Republicans. The goal here wasn't just to see if the AI could repeat the right talking points. It was to see if it could replicate the really subtle, almost unconscious biases and perspectives that real people have. And they did this by asking these incredibly clever questions. They wouldn't just ask an AI with a Democratic backstory, would you support this policy? They'd also ask things like, okay, but how many other Democrats do you think would support it? Or how do you think Republicans see this issue? You see, that gap between what you personally believe, what you think your group believes, and how you think the other side sees you, that's where a real identity is found. And the results? They were absolutely stunning. Just look at this chart. It shows how the old AI methods stack up against their new backstory method with the responses of actual humans as the target. The old methods, not even in the same ballpark. But the new method, It gets incredibly close to how real people actually think and respond.
How close? Well, the paper says they saw up to an 87% improvement in matching human response patterns. Let me be clear, that's not just a little better, that is a gigantic leap forward in creating AI personas that actually feel real.
So what was the secret sauce? They found it really boiled down to 3 things. First, scale. The more of these backstories they made, the smarter the model got overall. Second was length. Longer, more detailed life stories made for way more authentic AI. And finally, consistency. That little AI critic, making sure the story held together, was absolutely crucial.
And all of this brings us right back to where we started. Because this research goes way beyond just building a better chatbot. This is about the very nature of identity itself, in a world where we're not the only minds around anymore.
And there it is. That's the connection. Keke Palmer's whole message is that to master yourself, you have to be the author of your own story. And what these scientists found is that the exact same rule applies to machines. To create an artificial self that feels real, you have to give it a story it can believe in.
And this is not just some weird science experiment. As the researchers themselves say, this tech could let us create super realistic simulations to study huge social problems, things like group conflict, or what makes a democracy work or fail. It's a brand new tool for understanding ourselves.
Which leaves us with one last, kind of mind-bending question. We have always thought our unique life story is what makes us human. But if our identity really is just the story we tell ourselves, what does it mean when we get good enough to write a brand new, totally believable story for a machine?